I am Ian Bryson, author of I Love You Like One, a letter to my daughter abducted by a cult. Today is August 23rd, 2024, and I'm going to be making a follow-up video to question and answer number 5, which ended with the call to action email sent by my first wife and her cult family in response to my book being published. I recommend that you go back through the previous videos, and especially Q&A video number 5, in order to get a bearing on what we're talking about here today. The entirety of that email was read aloud in Q&A video number 5. I also recommend that you read the book, where all of the details of the evidence-based documentary that my wife Emily and I completed earlier this year are published. Emily's taking the day off today. I expect that she will be back alongside of me for our next video. For the past 14 years, I have been calling for an evaluation of my daughter for exposure to severe caregiver-inflicted child abuse. My position has not changed. My daughter returned home from 3 months in Poland with many signs that she had been abused. My first wife returned from 3 months in Poland and immediately told me that she would be returning to Poland with our daughter because of mind control, and that her family in Poland is a cult. None of the details in my story have changed, with my only cry being, stop debating about things you do not and cannot know. This was my household, and this is my daughter. Just evaluate my daughter in accordance with her father's allegations. I am the protective parent. They are a cult, and they are lying. I want to move forward into other details, but I think it's prudent to touch on a couple of points made in the cult's most recent communication that Emily and I went over in detail in the last video. This communication has been distributed among my friends, in our church, and at my place of work. None of this matters to me because the worst thing that could have happened already did happen when my daughter was stolen by what my first wife called a cult. Furthermore, I know that I stand on the truth, and I know that there is nothing that can be done against the truth. It just stinks, from a father's perspective, that it can take so long. The main reason that these lies were accepted for so long was that my voice was taken away. After the abduction of my daughter, I freaked out. I knew that she was going back to a cult because that's what my first wife told me was going to happen. With nobody helping me, this freaked me out even more, and I became more and more desperate. 4 months after the abduction, when I decided to go to Poland and take matters into my own hands, I put the final nail in my coffin. I ended up in a Polish prison with both the cult and my parents saying I was crazy. And every word that my first wife's cult family said about me was taken down by the court as fact. Today I have my voice back, and today I have an audience, and I am grateful for all of you. I could go over many of the points from the last email in further detail, but for today I have chosen 4. How many points must be proven wrong in order to cast serious doubt on the validity of their position? Especially since my only position has been, and is, evaluate my daughter. She was taken to a cult that practices ritual or organized abuse and trauma-based mind control. And this is what my first wife told me was going to happen. So point 1 from the email was my first wife wrote, I have run away from him with my daughter and only my purse. My rebuttal to this is that the abduction was planned. I was trying to get help for weeks before it happened. I told people it was going to happen. And I told people that I was terrified. I told people that she had our daughter's passport and would not tell me where it was, and that she was threatening to take our daughter out of the country. I was trying to get the authorities to intervene. Days before the planned abduction, my first wife gave somebody many bags of her clothing, telling me that she was getting rid of old clothes. These bags of clothing constituted more than half of the clothing that she owned. She certainly didn't leave with only her purse. The purpose of this statement, along with many of the other statements, is to try to make me look like the monster, when in fact the true monster is in Poland. The second point in the email that I'm going to bring up is that she calls me a molester. My rebuttal to this is that I was and am begging for an investigation. My daughter returned from her trip to Poland with a terrible fear that someone was going to touch her pee-pee, and she was talking about her grandfather's private parts. I have been saying evaluate my daughter as clearly and forcefully as I can since day one. The other side now says that I am a molester, but then goes on to say in the same email that the prosecutor found no grounds to evaluate for molestation. How can their 2 points be true simultaneously? I say they can't. I wanted and want my daughter evaluated because she has been molested and she has been ritually abused. I am not trying to cover my own butt, but to protect my daughter and to get her away from the people who have been hurting her for her entire childhood. The third point in the email that I'm going to cover is that she says that I tried to run her dad over with a car. My rebuttal to this is try to aim your car at someone in a parking lot who is not looking and see if you can miss that person. I don't actually recommend this, but I think you get my point. I did not try to hit him with the car. My fourth point and final point for this video is that she says, after missing him with the car, I then beat him repeatedly in the head with a hammer. My rebuttal to this is that the medical reports and the court reports said that I did not beat him repeatedly with the hammer. He had no hammer wounds on his head and no defensive wounds on his arms or hands. Because I had a hammer, and because my ex-father-in-law, who is the abuser of my daughter, said that I hit him with a hammer, the court used this to charge me with attempted murder instead of what I really did, which was a simple assault. I certainly thought about hitting him with a hammer, and I hope that any man with a little girl who was being abused would think the same thing. But I didn't hit him with a hammer. Do you think that someone would stand up immediately, walk around, and talk to the authorities right after getting beat repeatedly in the head with a hammer? No, I don't think so, but this is what he did because he was not touched with the hammer at all. My daughter is still being abused by this man because the family she remains in is a cult, according to my first wife. Because they are in such a cult, my first wife telling me that she has something like Stockholm Syndrome, I am their voice. And I cannot be silenced because I love them, I speak the truth, and I'm not worried about myself. I have no fear whatsoever of what they say about me because the truth will and is coming out. Thank you, God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon.